Maybe I'll read you a little from The Tao of Love and Sex. What a fantastic book. This is one of the classics. That and the Karmamudra, Supersexual Orgasm. The book called Sexual Secrets is pretty good. There's a lot of books out there, a lot of good books. This is chapter 4, 1,000 loving thrusts. That's a very important point. 1,000 loving thrusts. Let me repeat that again. 1,000 loving thrusts. You should plan on that. 1,000. 1,000. 1,000. You don't want to get in a hurry or you're not going to make it to 100, much less 1,000. When it comes to explaining the variations of style and depth of thrusting, there is no greater Tao of loving master than the 7th century physician Li Tung San. His book, the Tung San Tzu, deals in part with thrusting techniques. Of 16 chapters, 7 describe penile thrusts. The Tung San Tzu identifies 6 styles. Make contact and press down the jade peak, shuttling back and forth. The jade peak would be the penis. Sawing the jade substance as though one is cutting open an oyster so that one may reach the sparkling pearls. This is the first style. 2, thrust down to the jade substance and pull up by the gold gully, the clitoris, as though slicing off stones to find beautiful jade. This is the second style. 3, he uses his jade peak to thrust hard in the direction near the clitoris, as if an iron pestle is pounding a medicine mortar. This is the third style. 4, he moves his jade peak out and in, hammering at the left and the right sides of the examination hall sides of the vulva, as if a blacksmith is shaping iron with his 5 hammers. This is the 4th style. He jabs his jade peak back and forth in short and slow thrusts inside the vulva, as if a farmer is preparing his land for late planting. This is the 5th style. 6, the jade peak and the jade gate are grinding heavily and closely, as if 2 avalanches are mingling. This is the 6th style. So they're really big on different kinds of thrusts and keep it varied, keep it varied and deep and shallow, slow and swift, direct and slanting thrusts are by no means all uniform, and each has its own distinctive effect and characteristics. A slow thrust should resemble the jerking movement of a carp toying with the hook. A swift thrust, that of the flight of the birds against the wind. Inserting and withdrawing, moving upwards and downwards from left to right, interspaced intervals are in quick succession, and all these should be coordinated. One should apply each at the most suitable time and not always stubbornly cling to only one style alone for a reason of one's own laziness or convenience. The book then described 9 types of thrusts in detail. Strike out to the left and right as a brave warrior trying to break up the enemy ranks. 2, move up and down as a wild horse bucking through a stream. Pull out and push in as a group of seagulls playing on the waves. 4, use deep thrusts and shallow teasing strokes, alternating swiftly as a sparrow picking the leftovers of rice in a mortar. 5, make deep and shallow strokes in steady succession as a huge stone sinking into the sea. 6. Push in slowly as a snake entering a hole to hibernate. 7. Thrust swiftly as a frightened rat rushes into a hole. 8. Poise, then strike like an eagle catching an elusive hare. 9. Rise and then plunge low like a huge sailing boat braving the gale. Here's Emperor Wang Ti talking about depths of strokes. In male and female communion, if one does not know how to regulate thrusting depth properly, one will not be able to reap the maximum benefit. I wish you could tell me the details of this. Sue knew. She's the dark girl who's kind of in charge of instructing the emperor along with her 2 sisters. The man must observe what his woman's need is and at the same time treasure his qing, semen or essence, which he should never omit lightly. First, he should rub both his palms to make them warm and hold his jade stem firmly. And next, he should use the method of shallow draw and deep thrust. The longer he can keep thrusting, the more the partner will enjoy it. Thrust should neither be too fast nor too slow. Also, he must not thrust too deeply without some restraint, for he might injure his partner. Try several thrusts at lute string and then vigorously some at water chestnut teeth. When the woman is reaching her peak of pleasure, she will unconsciously clench her teeth. She will perspire and her breathing will quicken. Her eyes will then be closed and her face will turn hot. Her organ opens wide and secretions are flooding. From this, the man can see she is enjoying it very much. Also, Your Majesty should know that the depth of the vagina has 8 names. They are called the 8 valleys. 1 lute string, the depth of which is 1 inch. 2 water chestnut teeth, depth 2 inches. 3 little stream, depth 3 inches. 4 black pearl, depth 4 inches. 5 valleys proper, depth 5 inches. 6 deep chamber, depth 6 inches. 7 inner door, depth 7 inches. 8 north pole, depth 8 inches. And Emperor Huang Ti. And what is the method of 9 shallow and 1 deep? Su knew. This means simply to thrust 9 times shallow and then once deep. Each thrust should be coordinated with one's breathing. The depth between lute string and black pearl, 1 to 4 inches, is called shallow. Between little stream and valley proper, 3 to 5 inches, is called deep. Thrusting too shallowly, the couple may not feel the greatest pleasure. Too deeply, they may be injured. Injured means he comes, for one thing. I don't know. I can't think of what I'm going to talk about next. I'll say one thing. I was never, maybe once was I ever really successful in retaining my semen, but every time was better than the time before. Every session of lovemaking was better than the one before. And all the effort I made to keep from coming just came back to me 100-fold. As long as I was trying, everything was good, you know. I mean, you just reach a point where you can't quite. You think you can't, but you learn so much doing that. It's almost like, one thing is, it's like pleasure and pain are damn close. They're both like an intensity. Pain is very intense, but that pleasure is that same intensity. They're both so hard to hang with. It's very hard to hang with pain, but it's equally hard to hang with pleasure. You just can't hang there. The intensity is what gets you. And you gotta get away from it. And then you come. But you just gotta slow everything down, and you have to see how pain and pleasure are equal in their intensity, and being able and willing to you got to kind of like change yourself to accept that intensity. You got to give up any attachments to anything. You really got to let go to handle that intensity, and it makes you very present. And you got to be present, if you're not willing to be present. That's the biggest thing, is you're not willing to be present, so you run away. Pulling their hair is big. Scratching their back is so big. Scratching their breasts is so huge. Breasts all together, starting gentle, not even, avoiding the nipple, and then eventually end up there, and you drive them crazy. There's this saying where you press their breastbone with the side of your hand. It makes them fall in love with it. Awakens their heart, sort of. That's kind of a nice little thing to do. Get one of those. Biting and leaving marks. Leaving marks with this. It's like you got this intense lovemaking session, and then one of the most intense thing of all was when you were getting marked on the nails, and then you wake up in the morning and you look at that mark on your body, and you think very fondly of your partner and the experience of it. It's kind of, fellatio it talks down on it in the Kama Sutra, because you want to use all what you got to make her come 4 times, and if you just don't have any, it just injures you to have that. It's an injury. It's not a positive thing. Maybe if you can't get an erection, you're an old man, or there's nothing more thrilling than when it's done right. It's done right. But it's considered kind of low class in a certain way. A really upstanding man wouldn't want anything to do with it that much, but I don't know. It's kind of an illicit pleasure too, a little bit sometimes. Barbara Keys is real big on sex toys. She is huge on sex toys. She thinks sex toys are big, big, big fun.